to Weekly World News on SpringNectar TV, brought to you by Vibha Ramesh, Los Angeles, United States. First, the top headlines. U.S. Senate's bipartisan infrastructure deal to be finalized. Oxford COVID vaccine rejected in European Union court. Covaxin shows 77.8% efficiency in Phase 3 trial. Iran's new president-elect's first remarks post-election victory. Colombia fights a third wave of COVID-19. Now for news in detail. Racing against time, the bipartisan deal on infrastructure will finally see the light of day, and the group is looking forward to clearing a $579 billion deal in new spending. The 21-senator group, with members from both parties, have charted a 4-page breakdown of the spending plan. That said, their efforts are still in progress with constant number crunching, and the team will be meeting again Monday night for further refinement. As Senator Susan Collins, a key group member, stated, "We're continuing to work and flesh it out. There's a sense of growing optimism that perhaps we can show our country and the world that we can come together on something that makes a real difference in people's lives." However, on Tuesday, one of Biden's bills, in fact a top priority bill, was defeated in Congress. Despite Democratic unity, a procedural vote on the voting rights bill ended in a 50-50 stalemate, effectively killing the bill. Disappointed with the outcome, the Democratic Majority Leader Chuck Schumer remarked, "Every single Senate Republican just voted against starting debate on legislation to protect Americans' voting rights. Once again, the Senate Republican minority has launched a partisan blockade of a pressing issue here in the United States Senate, an issue no less fundamental than the right to vote," he said. Meanwhile, Vice President Kamala Harris will visit El Paso, Texas on Friday to lead diplomatic efforts on understanding the flow of migrants on the southern border. Sources say that she will be accompanied by Homeland Security Secretary Alejandro Mayorkas. The trip was confirmed by Harris's senior advisor and chief spokesperson, as she stated, "Earlier this year, the president asked the vice president to oversee our diplomatic efforts to address the root causes of migration from El Salvador, Guatemala, and Honduras. As a part of this ongoing work, the vice president traveled to Guatemala and Mexico earlier this month and will travel to El Paso on Friday." Moving on to the European Union, the failure of AstraZeneca in delivering the promised number of doses to the European Union has attracted the company a hefty penalty given by court. The Anglo-Swedish company had entered into an agreement with the European Union to supply 120 million doses of COVID vaccine by the end of this month. But it delivered only 1/4 of the agreed 120 million in the first quarter of this year. Besides, the company refused to divert doses made in 2 plants in the United Kingdom. This enraged officials of the European Commission, who in turn filed a suit against AstraZeneca for failing to comply with the contract. The European Commission won the case, and according to sources, the court instructed AstraZeneca to pay 30% of the Commission's legal fees, subject to a ceiling of €4,000. Commenting on the case of the European Union's president, Ursula von der Leyen said, "This decision confirms the position of the Commission. AstraZeneca did not live up to the commitments it made in the contract. It is good to see that an independent judge confirms this." Meanwhile, in the wake of Brexit, the European Union made an announcement which came as a blow to the United Kingdom entertainment industry. To this extent, the European Union is taking steps to minimize the amount of British television and film content aired in Europe. The move came in view of the fear that the UK film and TV industry, which currently dominates European television, might pose a threat to Europe's cultural diversity. This decision is expected to create tension in the UK-EU relationship, especially in the light of Brexit. A paper distributed among the member states read, "The high availability of UK content in video on-demand services, as well as the privileges granted by the qualification as European works, can result in a disproportionate presence of UK content within the European video on-demand quota and hinder a large variety of European works." And in India, Bharat BioNTech, which manufactures the anti-COVID vaccine Covaxin, submitted the results of its Phase 3 trials early this week. Trials were conducted on 25,800 subjects. Subsequently, the trial data was approved by the expert panel, and on Tuesday, it was announced that the vaccine showed 77.8% efficacy. Meanwhile, the centralized COVID vaccination drive has shown a huge success on its first 2 days, with 8.8 million doses administered on Monday and 5.2 million doses on Tuesday. Sources say that the spike in vaccination rate generated by the free inoculation program was a result of coordinated planning with all the states. Commenting on the success of the drive, Health Minister Rajesh Bhushan said, "What happened yesterday was a result of coordinated planning in which the state governments and the union government collaborated and worked very hard. Even what is happening today is a part of that planning." Having said that, news has it that Covaxin has not been authorized by foreign countries and hence is not accepted outside of India. This would mean that travelers, including students, vaccinated with Covaxin will not be accepted in foreign countries as being vaccinated. Consequently, West Bengal Chief Minister Mamata Banerjee has appealed to the centre to take necessary steps to ensure that travelers vaccinated with Covaxin are not restricted to travel to foreign countries. In her words, she said, "Covaxin has not been authorized by foreign countries and is not accepted there. Several students aspiring for higher studies abroad are facing difficulties in traveling because they have taken the Covaxin doses. Either immediately get Covaxin authenticated by the World Health Organization or take other steps so that Covaxin is accepted globally," she said. Over to Iran. The nation's presidential election culminated in the victory of Ibrahim Raisi, who will assume office in August this year. On Monday, the president-elect rendered his first speech wherein he shared an imprecise overview of how the country plans to revive the shattered 2015 nuclear deal with the West. He also firmly rejected the possibility of meeting Joe Biden, as he remarked that the country's ballistic missile program is non-negotiable and that the US is obliged to lift all oppressive sanctions against Iran. Raisi further vowed to resurrect the nation's nuclear deal with the West in the hope of seeking relief from US sanctions. And in the United Kingdom, just a day before lockdown restrictions were scheduled to be lifted per the original plan, the island nation recorded over 9,200 COVID infections. The numbers came to light following the call on Friday to all adults in England to get vaccinated. The invite led to the booking of over 1 million vaccinations in just 2 days. Based on statistics, the number of hospitalizations reached 1,316 patients on Thursday, which is the highest since April. The increase in the number of COVID cases in the UK is directly attributed to the rapidly spreading Delta variant and the partial relaxing of restrictions. Data revealed by Public Health England has it that the Delta variant of the virus had increased by 79% in a span of just 1 week, which in turn accounted for 99% of new cases of coronavirus. The situation justifies Boris Johnson's postponement of lifting the restrictions to July 19th. Meanwhile, Colombia is currently facing the brutality of a third wave. The nation has lost nearly 40% of its total death toll in just a little over 3 months. With over 25,000 cases reported each day and an average of 590 deaths in the past 1 week, healthcare facilities are on the brink of collapsing. Considering that Colombia was already reeling under the effect of social disturbance and protests against economic inequality, the pandemic has only aggravated tension among the public. Despite the prevalence of the third wave of the pandemic and the struggling healthcare sector, the president went on to open up the country and lifted most of the restrictions on June 8th. His decision to reopen the economy despite the surge was intended to prevent a bigger economic crisis. However, healthcare officials and doctors have a different stance in this respect. As John Parra, a doctor in charge of ICUs, remarked, "I understand the need to restart the economy, but you won't have much of one if everyone is dead." And reopening the economy gave people a false sense of security, and so they stopped protecting themselves in marches and elsewhere. Moving on, German Chancellor Angela Merkel announced that all travelers arriving in the European Union from the UK should be quarantined. The call to quarantine came in view of the forecast that 90% of the cases in member states of the European Union will be caused by the Delta variant of the virus by the end of August. She also criticized Portugal for allowing British tourists to enter the country without having to quarantine. In her words, as she told the lower house of Parliament, "In our country, if you come from Great Britain, you have to go into quarantine. And that's not the case in every European country, and that's what I would like to see," she said. On Wednesday, John McAfee, founder-entrepreneur of the antivirus software, was found dead in his cell in a Spanish prison. McAfee was serving time in a prison near Barcelona, and just hours before his body was found, his extradition to the United States to face tax-related charges punishable by nearly 30 years in prison was approved by the country's national court. The Catalan Justice Department confirmed in a statement that prison staff tried to save McAfee's life, but in vain. The statement read, "Judicial staff have been dispatched to the prison and are investigating the causes of death. Everything points to death by suicide." Moving on, here's some good news for fans waiting to attend the Olympic Games. Tokyo 2020 is all set to take place this summer, and organizers plan to permit thousands of fans and spectators into its venues. In effect, they announced that plans are on to allow up to 10,000 people, which is 50% of the venue's capacity. That said, the decision on the spectator limit for the Paralympics will not be announced until July 16th. Spectators will be required to wear masks and return home as soon as the events get over. According to government officials, in the event of a spike in infections before or during the Games, the organizers will have the option of holding the event without spectators. As stated by the governor of Tokyo, if there should be major dramatic change in infections, we may need to revisit this matter amongst ourselves, and we may need to consider the option of having no spectators in the venues. Culminating this week's report on a lighter note with news from Thailand. An elephant named Bunshwe barged into a house in the wee hours of Saturday in search of food. The hungry mammal was reported to have rummaged through kitchen drawers and knocked down utensils and other paraphernalia. The cacophony of pots and pans woke up the lady of the house, who captured the havoc created by the pachyderm on her phone. Apparently, this was not the first time for Bunshwe. On that note, I bring you to the end of this week's news report. I'll see you again next week with more world news on Spring Nectar TV. Thank you for watching.